Hey there, Jeff again, bringing you another episode of Behind the Arts. I know it's been a little while, but today we're going to be talking about reference models, like this guy. How to concept and design reference, especially for fantasy art where you don't have a lot of reference, how to build models, and then how to use them to do a painting. So I might do a little demo today to show you that. So let's check it out. Okay, before we talk about the models themselves, just a little bit of background stuff. So this is one of the paintings from the actual book of Sophia or Sbrahi when she becomes a sanguineer, spoiler. But this is one of the kind of explorations of the Sang and their look and all that. Here's some early sketches. So, again, if you've read the book, it's sort of conquistador meets Aztec plus angels. So you can see kind of the influences of the armor and just this opulence kind of thing. Just some more sketching. These are a little bit more real, kind of grounded concepts, experimenting with color and texture. And so a lot of that comes from books like this, where it's just patterns and weaves and color and shape and all that kind of stuff, this kind of thing. So these are really great when starting to explore sort of visuals like this, especially for the book, that each choir has a different kind of look and feel, symbolic shapes. So the lions have more of this triangular, the blade focus, so you can see all the arcs of all the clothing and the angles. The eagles are the inverse, so sort of a V. So it's kind of the opposite. So you can kind of, once you see it, that you kind of can make sense, plus the colors. The poles are square, which is why the chains are square links and square shoulders and all that. And then the stags are more of the circular water features. So this is all well and good. And then, sort of bigger concept shapes, things like that. But when it comes to actually painting these things in context of scenes, not just portraits like this, but especially with the new book, Aftermath, thinking about how all these characters are going to interact in more realistic scenes, not just sort of posed portraits like this, it becomes a little bit more difficult, and that's where reference models might come in. So if we come over here, I kind of showed this in the intro. This is just a art model, I don't remember the brand or whatever, with some toy wings that I kind of attached. So the idea here is that you can pose these things and they're gray so that you can get lights and shadows, angles. You can kind of see like you're already starting to get sort of the wings shadow against the skin and all that kind of stuff. This is okay, but you're adding a lot of detail on top of it, that there's a lot of nuance to some of this armor and reflections and things like that I really wanted to get a better reference for. So I kind of had two options. It was either build a full scale set, so that would be like using something like this, which is a scale, like an actual size sort of conquistador helmet, build out a complete costume, which would be ridiculously time consuming, or do something like this. So this, let me turn this light off. This is a scale model that I built to highlight just sort of an example sanguineer. I just have it on this sort of rotating cake pan thing that I painted black. But this is a figure that I built so that I can do more detailed shots with more realistic lighting and get a sense of how the shadows play and light and reflections and some of that stuff. So just a little bit closer here. So this figure is actually a Wonder Woman figure. You might recognize Gal Gadot's likeness. So starting with something somewhat close, right? And then all of this stuff is fabric, fabric paint, beads, jewelry, making materials, paint, clay, and model paint. So I've done some miniature painting and stuff like that before, so I have a little bit of experience with that. But what you can really see is like every little turn of this is a new scene that would make a pretty cool painting. And so the idea is to just get a gist so you could experiment with light and form and shape that might be a little bit more difficult if you're just coming up with it from memory, which is not my strength. The wings here are actually taxidermied pigeon wings, humanely gathered, so I'm told. But these are also a really awesome feature because the feathers are pretty much to scale. All the smaller feathers towards the joints, and then you have your sort of longer dagger-like feathers. I don't know the names. And the other nice thing about something like this is you can use sort of more dramatic lighting to really get some interesting shadows. You can throw some gels in there for some cooler lights, bounce lights and all that kind of stuff. So it just gives you a lot of examples. So like even here, seeing how the armor and the arm cuts into the shadow of the curved wing, but you kind of get a sense of the form of the wing also, so it doesn't look like a straight plane, which is a little bit tricky to imagine. And you know, some of this other stuff like the reflections of the armor up to the chin, sort of a bounced light, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a really useful tool. To someone who's not familiar with this process, it probably looks like the work of a crazy person. And it probably is, but it is useful. This is just a shot that I took, and it's like, it looks like a portrait of a person, which is kind of the point, right? I mean, you can tell it's a scale model and everything, but like the shadows in here, the cast shadow of the rim of the shoulder plate, the bounce shadow here, this just little line of the shadow. Like, this would take a lot of practice to figure out the angles of armor and things like that. Even the glow on the cheek from all the warm colors here is tough to imagine unless you've had a lot of practice just with materials and lighting and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the model, the figure. So we'll light it, and then we'll do a quick little sketch here and see how it goes. Okay, we'll take the tip off and have a look. So the nice thing is, once you have a model, you can do more of an impressionistic style because you know what you're simplifying from. So all the pattern complexity in down here can be simplified to something a little bit where you still get the feel of what the thing is without all the detail, but it would be really hard to improvise and pick out which little highlights and where and all of that without the model. So that's the finished piece. Thanks for watching.